EU President calls for mandatory energy rationing, the new normal rationing to flatten the curve of demand. The European Commission proposed a compulsory reduction in electricity use during peak hours as part of sweeping new measures to tackle the energy crisis. They're even talking about turning off the streetlights at night. Now, EU President Ursula von der Leyen called for the implementation of mandatory energy rationing during peak hours in order to flatten the curve of demand amid the largely self-inflicted energy crisis happening across the bloc. She said, so what we have to do is flatten the curve and avoid peak demands. We'll propose a mandatory target for reducing electricity use at peak hours, and we'll work very closely with member states to achieve this. Now, in the video before this one, the very bizarre interview with the German minister saying businesses will be ordered to stop trading this winter, which means, of course, that they're not going to be a going concern anymore, which means that they will have no funds to pay for their bills, especially staff and employees. And they'll file for bankruptcy, obviously. They can't keep going paying for their water and electricity and fixed costs. But anyway, according to Breitbart, in a stunning poor public relations move, EU President Ursula von der Leyen harkened back to the early days of the Chinese coronavirus crisis, when citizens across the world were told to accept a brief period of lockdowns to flatten the curve of infections, though this ultimately proved false within 2 weeks, quickly returning into over 2 years of restrictions for many across Europe and beyond. During a speech on Wednesday proposing energy rationing measures to be put in place before the winter months when demand peaks, the EU president said during peak demand, the expensive gas comes into the market. So what we have to do is flatten the curve to avoid the peak demands. We will propose a mandatory target for reducing electricity use at peak hours and will work very closely with the member states to achieve this. She said these are tough times and they're not over soon, but I'm convinced that Europeans have the economic strength and political will and unity to keep the upper hand. She must be living in a surreal world. You know what my mind comes to? And I hope this doesn't happen. Germany is a powerhouse of Europe. I hope they're not going to siphon off energy from other countries to uphold the German production of cars and machines and stuff. That would be totally unjust. But, you know, we live in very surreal times. You never know what's going to happen. Now, she said, these are tough times and we have to keep the upper hand. The use of some rhetoric from early stages of the virus outbreak is ominous, given that there does not appear to be an end in sight for the energy crisis enrapturing the continent, meaning that energy rationing could become a new normal and citizens will be forced to accept this whether they like it or not. Indeed, last month, Ben van Beurden, chief executive of multinational oil and gas giant Shell, warned that Europe will face years of shortages, saying it may well be that we will have a number of winters where we have to somehow find solutions. Energy rationing proposals have already come out of several member states, including France, Italy, and Germany. President Macron of France, who warned that France is facing the end of abundance, urged citizens this week to limit their energy usage in order to prevent future government-imposed rationing, mirroring similar statements from outgoing Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi. Matters are only likely to get worse for the European Union, with Putin shutting down Nord Stream 1 pipeline, officials blaming Western sanctions levied on Russia. It's doubtful if such protests, though, having to do with what's happening, will move the governments, but with Foreign Affairs Minister Annalena Baerbock declaring last week that the coalition government will continue to support Ukraine's war effort no matter what what the German voter thinks. In addition to proposing mandatory energy rationing, the European Commission will also propose several other measures to combat the growing crisis, von der Leyen said, including putting a price cap on gas imported to the bloc from Russia. Now, setting a price limit could backfire, though, as Russia could choose to sell its fossil fuels to other buyers, such as India and China, which it's already doing, and could see energy providers go bust, as has previously happened in Britain under a similar price control system. This is by Neam Harris on News Punch. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.